So we all want.
Right. One person cut one fat check.
Yeah.
Fixed it. But what happened was a lot of people started to send a lot of small checks, and money started to pile up. And my sister Christy, shout out to Christy, I was talking to her on the way over here. She said she jumped on board early on and was like, let me PR this album, because she had this passion to fight human trafficking since a mission trip she took when she was 16. And so she's running with it, and we're pushing the album out, and people are paying attention and on all that. And then she says, hey, what if we do a 5K and a half marathon? I was like, do I got to run?
Yeah, right. Can I use a scooter?
Can I just wave at people? And so we did it, and it smashed, and we got a lot of money from it. And God was so in it, because the exact numbers we prayed for, we got to the dime. Like, man, we should have asked for more. And by the end of that year, man, we sent Kyrus $30,000. And I never raised that much for one effort in my life. And I was like, what's going on? And then Christy came to me and said, hey, what do we do to always fund this safe house? But then what do we do to duplicate this in the States? Because there's 300,000 American kids getting trafficked every year here. What do we do for them too? And so we formed safehouseproject.org as a separate 501c3. Christy's on it as the CEO. My sister Brittany Dunn is on it as the CEO. Shout out to Brittany. And they are doing an amazing job. I'm on the board as founder, and together we've created a system that not only is going to always fund the Safe House in South Africa. I just got a great report about that on the way over here.
Oh, nice.
But it's going to continue to create new beds, new safe houses on the national landscape of America to eradicate the problem in America by 2030. And it's really cool to see that happening. And it all started from a hip hop album. Crazy.
That is amazing. Wow, so many things going through my mind right now. One of them is that it's unthinkable almost that we can live in a country with the technology we've got, the resources we've got, the wealth that we've got. Everybody knows everything about everything, but something this big could just go right under the radar and out of most people's minds. And I don't know if it's because we don't like to think about problems or difficult things, but that's almost unthinkable. But, you know, something you said about the girls there in Africa, you know, and it kind of came home. And this was right in the time that it all started, when you looked at them and realized, wow, they're just a couple years older than my daughters, right? Yeah. So I think so easy. And this kind of goes back, you know, we were talking about the racial issue before it started, and it goes, it's the same problem when it comes to human trafficking. We get these stories that we tell ourselves, that we make in our minds about the lack of value of other people, and they just become objectified. Yeah. They just become objectified. And we cease seeing them as people with dreams, with hopes, with feelings, with needs. We stop seeing them as people that we can relate to, and that we can share part of their story, that there's common threads, you know, that we've got with them. And we stop seeing it, that we see ourselves in a different level, at a different place, and just kind of disregard it. Yeah.
I mean, supremacy in any form, whether you're talking about a trafficker objectifying a child, whether you're talking about, you know, racial issues or whatever, it all comes from I have to be better than somebody else in some form. And I can only do that if I can find those people over there and say I'm better than those people. Right. Doesn't matter if it's ethnic. Doesn't matter if your political party, your theology, your sex, your gender, what you have or don't have, your socioeconomics. There's got to be those people for me to be better than. And as much as we don't want to believe that proclivity exists in all of us, it absolutely does. If we didn't have the capacity to do that, we wouldn't see anybody doing that. We all have that ability, and we've got to work intentionally to make sure that we're not consciously slipping into that. I mean, even if you can talk about this too, like you can have a good cause, but then you can use that good cause, work hard at that good cause, and then judge others who aren't doing that good cause, because now you're better than those people. Right. And like, you can take a good thing and make it a God thing. And it's just like, everybody's got that proclivity. So when it comes to, you know, this idea of trafficking, like, brother, it's literally devaluing another person made in the image of God, just like you, and finding a way to say they're not worth it. I can run some lyrics from artists out right now about some things. They said literally a song called Know Your Worth right now that I just heard the other day, where he's talking about a woman, and he's like, yo, know your worth. You're not worth that much money. You're not worth my time. You only worth this. And I'm just like, fam, that's trafficking language. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, absolutely. We think trafficking is somebody's going to snatch you up and throw you in the car, and it's not that. It's objectifying somebody for commercial profit and making money off of it. And like, that's legitimately what these people are doing. And it's been done from the beginning of time. You talk about how can it exist with our wealth and our knowledge and our our moral endeavors and our, dude, the one thing that hasn't changed, wealth and kingdoms and empires and countries come and go. What has never changed is the human heart. That's the same.
Jeff will be back shortly to wrap up today's message. This is Gabriela, still on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. If you've missed any part of today's message, you can hear it again online, as well as the entire archive of Empowered Living at www.talknetworkradio.com or search keyword #Empowered Living. We would like to acknowledge our music partners, Sound Ideas for Corporate to the Max and Kevin MacLeod for Airport Lounge. Any scriptures read during this broadcast are from the New American Standard Version of the Holy Bible. If you would like to learn more about Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, visit www.jeffbyrdcoaching.com. That is JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Do a Facebook search for @CoachingRocks or drop Jeff a line at jeff@jeffbyrdcoaching.com. Again, JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Let Jeff's Coaching Rocks be the building blocks of your empowered success. Now, let's go back to Jeff for the rest of today's message.
The human heart says, I don't want God to be God. I want to be God. And in order for me to be God, somebody can't be. And I've got to find a way to put them down. And there is the litany of all the problems we have, from our politics to our socioeconomics to our racial stuff to trafficking. It's all there.
Right. So one of the things that you mentioned was having the intentional mindset about the value of other people. In other words, it doesn't come easily. It's so much easier to go downhill than it is to go uphill.
Yeah.
We have it right.
Yeah. Right.
And like I tell this to people sometimes. I say, well, if you've ever been on a team in your work, you know that one negative person can take that team down a whole lot faster than a positive one can push it up.
Weakest link, bro.
So what could you give us some recommendations, some personal experience of what do you do to intentionally keep that mindset, seeing the value in other people? What works for you that you can pass on?
For me, it's to see it in other people. It's got to be where do I get my identity from first? Because I got to look at me, like what makes me find my value? Because if my identity is in my position or what I do, if it's in these fallible things that can change at any moment, if it's in my money or my ability to take my kids on this trip or not that trip, or my ability to how good am I the best rapper out there? Am I the best speaker? If it's in those things, then everything about the core of who I am is fragile and can be shaken at any moment. And in order for it not to be shaken, I've got to find a way to prop my fragile self up. And I will do that at your expense, even if I don't recognize it. So is my identity in my fragility and in things that can fade away and change? Or is it something unchangeable? Are my convictions or something that can't be changed and will stand the test? Even when I'm dead and gone, they still will be standing here. And am I basing my identity in that? So for me, that transcendent moral value about myself and who I am is in God. It's not in me, because I'm a flawed human being. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. Very few people would argue that about themselves. We all acknowledge, right? We all acknowledge that's the case. But then we put moral perfection on ourselves and we acknowledge that we're not perfect. I can't be morally perfect. So if the transcendent value of God is he that is morally perfect, and he thought enough about me in my imperfect state to come and to get me and love me, how can I then look at somebody else next to me and think of them as less than me when he thinks that way about them too?
Right.
Right. So since my value is not based on the fragile things that can fade away and pass away, like money, success, talent, skill, whatever, relationship status, social economics, since I've taken my value out of that and I put it in what does God say about me? Who does he say I am? Right. And if he calls me his and he says I'm worth it to him, and he was willing to trade places with me and die on the cross for my sake, then how can I look at somebody next to me, no matter what their flaws are or not, and think they're better or less than me when he did the same thing for them? Right. So it takes it off of myself and it takes it off of humanity and it puts it on perfection. And so that's kind of how I think if I'm able to focus my life, and it's not easy, right? Because everything about me wants to find a way to make it about me.
Right.
But the intentionality is every day, hey, God, this is all about you. You're the perfect one. Your value system is the only one that matters. And how dare I, the person that I went to sleep mad at, how dare I think less of them, even if they did something wrong? How do I not value that person, even if we can't connect right now because of whatever, we're humans and we're not jiving? But like, how do I think of them the way you think of them, even in this broken state? And that changes the whole conversation, I think. And it doesn't allow you to think of somebody you want to objectify lesser than. Like, I went from somebody who's addicted to pornography and enjoyed like watching that and enjoyed doing my best to live it out to somebody who if I'm at the movies and they slide a sex scene in there, I can't look at it. I'm looking at the floor. I'm walking out, and somebody's like, "Yo, like, dude, it's just a movie. Like, ain't you strong enough? Like, you preacher, you speaker, like, I'm like, bro, I'm not giving myself an inch to see anybody get objectified. I don't want it because I know what my mind will do if I give myself space. I don't want that anymore. And that only comes from not from me. That comes from God's value system, I think.
Yeah, that's a conversation my wife and I, have had recently, and that's that, and I told her before, I said, so some of these little things, they're not so outrageous or out there. I said, but you know what? Somebody's still doing that for the camera. They're portraying that person. Mm-hmm. They're getting paid the big bucks to do that, and we are supporting it by watching it, saying it's okay to put those images out there. And just because it doesn't cause you a big problem or you don't revisit it and play it out or something, that doesn't mean somebody else isn't.
Yeah,
and so we're helping them put something in that's going to be a problem for somebody else.
Yeah, billions of dollars in that industry, and a lot of people in that industry are trafficking victims. Yeah, and you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody cares because they only want what they want out of it.
Right.
Like, and I enjoyed it too, and I was like, yo, like, I wasn't thinking about the value system of the person on the other side of the screen. Yeah. I wrote a song about like I'm just as guilty as anybody else out here, from that aspect of it. And like, no, man, that's not what it's about. We have to change our value system and see people for who they're made to be.
Yeah. And, you mentioned too, as you go through the day, looking at other people with that same value that God places on you and places on them. But that reminded me, a long time ago, I heard somebody say, life is usually not like being attacked by a dragon. It's more like being pecked to death by a flock of ducks. It's like, it's not one big traumatic thing. It's all these little things coming at you. Mm-hmm. So I find, when we're sitting having a conversation like this, or if I'm in a quiet time or in a church service or in a beautiful, peaceful place, it's easy for me to align with those thoughts. And I absolutely agree with them. Mm-hmm. My spirit just resonates and shouts and cheers. And, it's like, yeah, right on, right on. But when I'm in the middle of being pecked to death by the flock of ducks, it can be harder to see that. Yeah. Even if somebody's holding me up, making me late, getting in my way, in traffic or wherever. So is there anything just real practically that you do on a daily basis? I mean, do you start your day? Do you have affirmations that you do? Do you what do you do on a daily basis to try to kind of strengthen yourself so that when the ducks get loose, that you're still able to stay as closely aligned with that space and mentality and then respond accordingly to the greatest extent possible?
I had a pastor friend of mine, shout out Jamie Stewart. He talked about this thing called the first 15. Yeah. First 15 minutes of your day, what are you doing? How you starting your day? So before and John Piper's got an amazing article too about why you shouldn't check your phone first thing in the morning. Yeah, and
true that.
It's common sense, but I mean, it's right there. So when I roll over to bed, I wake up. Do I do this, or do I roll out? Do I hit my knees and I talk to God first? Because the first thing I do is like I'm talking to the Father, like, hey man, thank you, because first of all, you woke me up one more day. Right. I am not breathing my air. Like, this is not mine. This is no home to me. Right. And thank you for letting me do it once more. I get to enjoy my children today. I get to go do what I love to do today. Thank you. So I start with a place of gratitude and humility. Like, I don't have to be alive right now. So thank you for this. And so my first thing is prayer. And then the next thing is, let me get the word of God into me very, very first thing. So I need to start my thoughts with his before I get inundated with everybody else's thoughts on my Twitter feed and on news and Instagram. So therefore, I don't get sucked down this rabbit hole of other thinking before I've aligned myself with the thinking I want to commit my life to. And that helps me kind of stay grounded. So when somebody cuts me off in traffic, when something happens, and when I want to spaz out, I've noticed I'm less likely to when I stick to that than if I just start my day scrolling through my phone. Right. Because the first thing in my mind is other people's thoughts, and they can take over sometimes. So. Yeah. That's the practical thing I think I do. Yeah. And as over time, you see the more you discipline yourself to do that, the more your default mode changes to that versus the default mode being whatever it is right now, what it used to be. So the more I train myself to this is what I want to think about first, the more when those actions come to test you and the ducks start coming, you're like, oh man, I'm handling that a lot differently than I did a year ago. Like, what happened? It was the day